All right, it is 6 o'clock. I will call to order this regular meeting of the Rock Ridge School Board. At this time, I would invite everyone to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Star for this.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
All right, and there's a copy of our meeting materials at the table when you walk into the room, and for those that are watching online, it's available on the Rock Ridge webpage under the board tab, and you can find it that way. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I have one addition if I may do so. Approve senior class last day of school, May 28th, for the Evelyn Campus High School. And we can put that on the consent agenda number 23.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Support? Oh,
No, he made the motion, sorry.
remind me how this works. We're all, yeah. Let's do this motion first and then I'll do a roll call. Okay, so there's motions, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda with the amendment to the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And thank you, Director Addy. I will just go through and do a roll call. Director Yuhan.
Here.
Director Schoberg.
Here.
Director Lotiger. Here. Director Tamero.
Here.
Director Anderson.
Here.
Director Addy.
Here.
Director Reardon.
Here.
And Director Sorkin.
Here.
And Director Sundquist. We're all here tonight. At this point, agenda item number 3, recognition of visitors and visitor input. I know that we've got some visitor input today. So if you just want to stand and identify yourself for the record.
Is it okay if I mask if I'm not really by anybody? Yeah. It's hard for me to talk loud. Hi, I'm Amy Hendrickson, teacher and school director at the East Range Academy, the Minnesota Public Charter School located just across the hallway in this building. I'm here to address your operational budget, which is on your agenda tonight. Last September, I became aware that Rock Ridge was not planning on demolishing this building. Though it is not a fancy building, it has served our public charter school students, staff, and students well for the last 14 years. In September, I presented your board with a proposal noting that not only would our school like to continue leasing our part of this building from you, but that we would very much like our students to have opportunities to take classes at your new high school academy, even if it meant significant financial reductions to our own school budget. We presently pay you about $235,000 per year to lease our site here. If we stayed and you invited our students to take even one class per day at your new school, that could bring another $200,000 per year of new ongoing revenue to your district. And if some students were able to take more than one class per day, that could increase your revenue even more. If our school remained in this location, we could vendor some transportation and food service from you. Overall, the proposal I'm so nervous, I'm sorry, you guys. Overall, the proposal in September conservatively came to $500,000 or about $500,000 per year Rock Ridge would earn starting next school year for the continued lease, classes, and other purchase services from our school. And all of that is at almost no new expenditures for you. I never received any response. What I have been trying to tell everyone is that our public charter school can actually downsize and still stay true to our mission and vision of helping the high schoolers who most need the individual help. We do not need to be a large school. If you help us provide new quality opportunities to our students through your classes, we would find ways to absorb the loss in revenue and still make it work. A few weeks ago, I appreciated that Superintendent Schmidt gave me some of his time. My question to him was straightforward. Why can't our two schools, both Minnesota public schools, work together to better serve the area kids who most need the help and resources. He noted that he felt the ship had probably sailed and that you as a board were probably still very upset and still angry about the legal situation which occurred last year with the eminent domain. Though I was not directly involved in the legal processes last year, I myself should have been a stronger school leader. As such, I accept full responsibility for anything that angered or upset you in regards to that situation. I'm very willing to personally and publicly apologize for any specifics you need me to if it will allow us to move on to help my students. Ironically, my own board has similar feelings about working with you. They don't trust you very much either. But I tell them what I will tell you now. These are all just excuses. They're not actual reasons why this wouldn't be beneficial for students. Even though we are financially able to, it's crazy for my board to build a new $5 million building when we are in one that fits us well and is literally next door to a new $100 million facility being built to help Iron Range kids. And it's just as crazy for you guys to be discussing any operational budget cuts as you might tonight. You have an ongoing source of $500,000 per year in student enrollment and lease revenue sitting right here if you would just accept that we exist. We exist as a school, and please help us serve a population of kids who often slip through the educational cracks. We specialize in working with kids who need extra social, emotional, mental health, or other personal or family help. We're good at what we do, but I am asking you here for your district's expertise and help with new academic and expanded class options. On the flip side, I know you are seriously underestimating the needs many of our students have. The best, most innovative classes don't help a kid find a place to sleep for the night. And without seriously addressing those types of basic need issues like we do, there's no way a kid can focus on any class in any school at any time. We have a successful program sitting here to help keep kids in high school. We provide a measure of security, safety, and equity for the kids who need the extra help. And I do not understand, and I cannot understand what the reason is we can't figure out to work together for them. I know you won't respond to me tonight, but I'm going to continue asking and raising these questions until someone convinces me why we shouldn't all be helping the kids who need the most help. Why shouldn't we stay here so our students can get the classes you are offering and the extra support we provide? Not only does it make sense financially for your district, but it's just the right thing to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I do appreciate you giving the input. There were two of us that were involved in the legal piece of it. And from my perspective as being involved in that and as the board chair, we made the decision at that time to settle so that we could move forward with our plans. And our plans do now look at utilizing this space for the needs of our schools. And I will just say that on behalf of the board, at this point, we are not interested in doing anything else.
That's fine. I've kind of figured, but I figured I had to say it.
Absolutely.
I had to ask it, and I'll keep asking it because it seems crazy to me, but.
I appreciate your time.
Advocate for your students.
Sure are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Agenda item number 4 is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve that as amended?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Director Lotiger. Is there support? Was it
Bill said so.
Bill? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries 8-1.
You,
Star for 100% attendance tonight.
I know.
everybody that's been making donations.
Yes. Agenda item 5 is construction. Consider approval of the Virginia Elementary School Design Development Estimate.
Thank you for letting us address you again tonight. I'll take this off so you know I'm far enough away from you all. Patrick Gallagher, the senior project manager for all the projects in the referendum. And Pete Avenet is putting up the presentation here. He is the project manager for Virginia Elementary School. It's really kind of unique how each school has got a different personality and how the designs get worked to address those needs in each one of them. And Virginia Elementary is a different community and a different urban setting and a different set of criteria for that design. We've been working with the team on that. So we have some good news recent tonight for you. I'll let Pete take it. Go ahead, sir.
All right, as Pat said, I'm Pete Avenin. Here, I'll take this off. Ross Anderson, project manager on the Evelyn Gilbert Elementary currently, and will be on the Virginia Elementary, so.
We appreciate you wearing your Rockridge green tonight.
Right? Almost, it's a little bright. But someday
Big enough
I'll
for
get
St.
some.
Pat.
Yeah, I was a week late. All right, so obviously, nice new rendering of the school updated by Cunningham, so thanks to them if they're listening. So very similar agenda that you've seen in past presentations for estimate approvals. This is for the Virginia Elementary DD estimate. So we already went through SD schematic design. Now we're in the design development. So section 1, we'll go through estimating process, show you where we're at today. I'm sure you've all seen those slides before too, but we'll hit it just as a summary. Section 2, go through the actual estimate, our key questions that you've seen before, and ask about alignment. Referendum budget summary, like management items, and then wrap up with the conclusion and go for approval at the end. Any questions on the agenda? All right, section 1, estimating process. So you guys have seen this before, but we've gone through the planning project development, through the pre-referendum, and we're currently in the pre-construction right now. Once we move through pre-construction, we go on to bid award in the winter and then move on to construction in fall of 22. This is just another recap of where we've come from, where we're at today in design development and where we're headed. So this project is a little bit different from the other two. The other two, we went from design development and then we just created our construction documents and went into bidding. With this project, because of the timeline that we have and the extra time that we have, we're going to move on to construction document and actually create a full-on estimate like we did for the design development phase that we're in now. So we'll get one more round of estimating in, make sure everything's good to go, and then move on into our bidding phase in January of 22. So this is just kind of a recap of what I just talked about. We're in design development in March here. The construction document phase, that'll be coming out in June. So we'll be doing another full estimate there, and then contractor bidding in January of 22. So the note down here on the bottom, the reason for bidding so early in 2022, and we're not starting construction until fall of 22, is so that we can expedite our mechanical and electrical supply. So some of those items are long lead items for your mechanical units, electrical, switch gears, and so on and so forth. So those items are actually going into the basement of the existing gym, where the Roosevelt Gym is now. So we can actually start that process right after bid time in award. We can order the materials and equipment and start installing those during the summer before we start demo of Roosevelt and construction of the new elementary. So.
And keep in mind, once we take down Roosevelt, that is, those heating lines that go to the existing gym run through that building. So we have to, by that fall, have the new heating plant up and running to heat that gym. So, just one thing I'll mention, just with this June to January, a lot of things going on in the market. I'm going to go to this side, so I'm not talking over you. A lot of things happening in the construction market right now with materials. I'm sure a lot of you come in contact and talk to people, right? Steel is about 30% higher than when it was when we bid these two projects. So that's important to know. And with steel comes not just structural steel, but metal studs and pretty much anything that contains steel. So even mechanical units that have frames and those types of things. We see that price is probably going to come down in that time window. But one thing that isn't clearing up right now is also lead times. It's taking longer to get it. So even though it's up 30%, you also got to wait for it. We're seeing it also with electronics. One component made in Mexico, one component made in China holds up an entire mechanical unit. So we're really trying to get ahead of this game, get things defined, ordered as soon as we can. So that early bid period, and by early, this January bidding period right after Christmas is going to help us with that too. But you'll see when we talk inflation a little later, there's some good things about what's going on right now too, because the economy is by no means growing so fast that they're worried about inflation. So you haven't seen those interest rates come down either. So that's a good, or go up either. So that's a good thing. Go ahead, Pete.
Any questions on that before we move on? All right, section 2, actually get into the, must have been a squeaky chair. Getting into the design development estimate review. Our normal 3 questions that we ask, are we in alignment with design and budget? If not, why? And if not, how do we align the budget? And then the last question at the end of the night here, or end of this session, do we have approval to move forward? So the answer to question number 1, we do have a $600,000 alignment required. However, if you look at some of these other reference percentages, so at the Evelyn Gilbert Elementary, at design development, so this same phase, we were at 5.5%. And then from the Virginia schematic design, the one previous to this was at 14, and we brought it all the way down to 2.8%. So that's, I think, the best number that we've had at DD out of all 3 projects. So really happy and excited about that.
I have a question of the alignment and the value, whatever, for the other 2 buildings. We still have a balance there, don't we? I thought the last thing was about 5-6 million, and did it go down to?
The elementary was on the plus side. It was under budget, correct? You're talking about the high schools?
In high school? I couldn't remember which one, yeah.
Yep, the high school, we just went through 3 rounds of value engineering. And I can get with you offline and show you those numbers, but once we completed that last round, we took a little bit from the FF&E budget and we were able to balance that project. So we did work.
Balanced on that one, no.
It's taken right to now though, so it's a good question because we haven't come back to you yet. We will at the quarterly report, but that's a good question.
All right. So this is just a reminder slide of what that budget was for construction for number 2, elementary number 2 at Virginia campus, 21.5 million. And this is just a comparison of the referendum budget, the 21.5, and where we're at today with the design development of BES at 22.1 with your 600,000 deviation, but still within that 2.8%, well within striking distance. Like I said, that's the best percentage we've had out of all 3 schools. Any questions on that comparison? All right, so moving into the estimate, this is just a breakdown of the different locations within our estimate. So our site, our building, our contingency, our general conditions, our alternates and inflation. And I'll talk a little bit more about alternates and inflation further on in the presentation. Questions on that breakout?
Just one thing I want to bring up here too is the ratio of site work to building is more normalized on this site. Obviously, we're not blasting rock and doing a lot of things that we've had to do on these 2 sites. So we're back to normal, folks. When it comes to this ratio, it's not like it's such a high ratio of the overall cost. So.
Good point. So this is just a further breakdown of the previous slide. So this talks about our different systems to actually build the building and site. So our existing conditions, our site work, foundations, building structure, exterior enclosure, so on and so forth. So it just gives you a little further breakdown. So any questions on the overall estimate before we move on to alternates? All right, so alternates. So what we use these for, and you probably heard it before, is flexibility within our estimate and when it comes to bid time. So if you notice, we have 10 of them listed here. Any alternates that are red with the parentheses are a deduct alternate. Any of the ones that are the black lettering are add alternates. So depending on how the bid comes out, after all the bids come in, we go through them and see where we're at compared to budget. That'll determine if we can either have to use deduct alternates to remove stuff from the project to get within budget, or if we come under budget, like we did on the previous elementary, we're able to add things back in. So it just gives us that flexibility to still keep it a part of the project as a possibility, instead of just Xing it all together. So with the two highlighted ones, in case you're wondering, alternate number 2, we did accept these 2 alternates at DD right now. So these are already included, these 2 deducts in our estimate. So number 2 is removing 7 log sculptures. So there's originally 14 log sculptures in the DD drawings, and we took 7 of them out to save the 21,000. The other one was different style benches that are placed throughout the site. So the vector bench is just a different style from the duo bench, and it's a little bit cheaper. Very similar, just slightly different, and you save a few bucks. So those 2 we accepted, and the other ones, and we may add to this list or remove some from the list as we move into CD. But like I said, it allows flexibility to add stuff back in if we come under budget, or if we're over at bid time, we're able to take some money out.
Could you describe the difference between curtain wall vent styles and aluminum windows? That's like an upgrade, right?
Yes, so the curtain wall vent style, I think as Pat was mentioning earlier tonight to somebody else, so the curtain wall is, has a drainage system and it has a structure in it, and then you actually insert an operable window like within that structure. Whereas if you, the way we're going to have it right now is just an aluminum window, so it's all one assembly.
Okay. And then what's wood CW in lieu of aluminum?
Yeah, sorry about all the acronyms there. So wood curtain wall
Curtain wall.
in lieu of aluminum. So currently in the estimate, we have aluminum curtain walls for like the main entry. And then we would do an add alternate for a Douglas fir wood curtain wall.
The one thing about curtain walls, just so you know, like Pete had said, it has a structure to it. You see curtain walls like when you look at a high-rise building and you see nothing but glass on the outside of the building. Those have condensation that happens with that temperature differential, so it has to have a drainage system. When you have big glass, you really need to do a curtain wall. There are limitations on what an aluminum window will do and what a storefront window will do. Curtain walls are the larger ones. So just for the heck of it, go back to your first slide. So big windows like this, we still do in curtain wall. And that is where we have an alternate to do that in wood. It'll be wood cladded on the inside. Right now, it still has wood on the outside to maintain this very same appearance on the exterior of the building. But on the inside, it would have a wood covering. So that's what that is. But we call these punch windows, these smaller windows like this. We were able to go with aluminum windows with those instead of curtain wall like these tall ones are needed to be curtain wall. And we're able to save money working with the design team on that. Okay.
Just curious if these upgrades are incorporated into the elementary north building too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me get your project here. So we're talking the same. So wood curtain wall, we do have the wood curtain wall up at the elementary, and is actually bamboo, not Douglas fir. The windows, we actually have a H window. So it's a wood window, aluminum cladded on the outside for those windows. Are there any others specifically, or?
Each window is different than the what window?
So up at the Evelyn Gilbert, we have a H wood window, and then it's aluminum cladded on the outside, where this is a straight aluminum window, both inside and out.
So the wood window would be real similar to what you'd have in your house. But but it's a high-end wood window up there in the elementary.
Is one of a higher quality than the other? As far as,
Kind of a-
dressing up?
Different design criteria. You know, do you want a wood look of the woodsy wherever Gilbert is out in the country? Or do you want more of an aluminum urban sleek look where you are in downtown Virginia?
Match up with the brick facade.
Price-wise, not a lot of difference there, just more a different design criteria. And if the design team wants to say anything more about that, they can, but I think that's pretty much the reason.
One more on number 8. I think I remember that we kind of downgraded from terrazzo to rubber floor in the elementary north. So are we upgrading here?
We did not in elementary north. We do have terrazzo there. We did downgrade it in the high school.
Oh, high school, I remember.
Yep.
Okay.
And that was partially because the high school is so much bigger. So you had a smaller heart at the elementary north, and we were able to work that out because your budget came out decent on that one in your bidding.
So we did have that as an add alternate up at Evelyn Gilbert Elementary.
Yep.
And then because the bidding came in good, we were able to accept it. And that's what we're hoping that we can do with this, depending on where the bid comes in, so.
Hey,
Yes.
hey, Pat, Pat knows I talked to him about a few things on this add alternates. That was about the rain garden. You want to explain what, the question I asked about the rain garden was, what kind of water are you going to be using? What kind of maintenance is going to be required? What kind of water is going to be going through this? Is there going to be a filtration system, some sort of, maybe you can explain what this rain garden is.
Yeah, the rain garden at one time in the design process with the advisory team was there's an opportunity to put, I'll call it a pond out there that we can grow more of those type of species that you'd see out in a wetland, right? But it wouldn't have standing water in it, so that's why we don't call it a pond, we call it a rain garden, because that water drains from the surrounding area only. We don't introduce more water, just whatever rain runoff comes into it, the grades are directed to it. That goes in, keeps that moist, but that water does filtrate over a few hours, hits to the bottom and then drains off to the city storm system. Now, a lot of times we are required to do that. Both of these projects require that. So you'll see big ponds at the elementary up the hill and big pond down here in the high school because they want to capture all of that rainwater before it hits the storm system. When you're in the downtown area where you have a high density, where you build from street to street and fill every piece of downtown because you don't have the real estate we have out here, they allow you to not have to retain and do a pond like that. Only right in the very dense downtown. So you don't have to do that pond. They drew it in so that you could have that educational capability. But in discussions with the AT group and between us and the design group, you have the ponds here, you have the school forest, and in the urban environment, we're gonna price it separate so we could add it if things come out well, like Pete had said, like we did in the other elementary, but we did take it out right now in our current estimate. Does that make sense?
Okay, then I had another question about the loading dock, about asphalt versus concrete. I know we're in northern Minnesota. Concrete holds up very well in this area. With asphalt over a period of a shorter period of time, if not done right, asphalt will start to buckle and crack, and then pretty soon there's a lot of maintenance required in asphalt to repair it. In your opinion, Pat, I mean, my opinion would be that this should be concrete. The loading dock should be concrete. You're gonna have heavy trucks on it, and it would last a lot longer. I mean, so I'm just concerned that, in just a few, 3-4 winters, that you're gonna be repairing this asphalt.
Yeah, currently we do have the heavy duty concrete, so the 8-inch thick concrete at the loading dock. This would only be a deduct alternate to switch to asphalt. If say we get in trouble during bid time and we come over budget, we had to find a place to cut some money.
We had a lot of constructions on that. Kimley Horn is pretty much from what you had just said on the same opinion. And that is, it will last longer. And it really comes down to dollars and cents. I mean, if you go to a Walmart distribution center where there's trucks, high traffic coming in all the time, what do you see? Pretty much bituminous because it's so big, right? You have a small area here, so it makes sense. You could do concrete. It's not as big of an expanse area, but you don't have the volume either. You have relatively light trucks and very few of them. So that's where this decision comes in. Do I spend my money on concrete, 8 inches thick, and am I overspending there where I could be spending it somewhere else in the education process? Or do I go with bituminous and just make sure I have the base that'll hold out? And what we've decided is concrete is what we're gonna put in the price. Concrete's what we're gonna do unless something in the bid market requires us to do differently. And, you know, you think about it, nobody would have thought we would have a pandemic. So when I say things could happen to the bid market, that can happen. Hurricanes happen and then prices go up. All those different things that we don't know what they are yet. That's why we want this flexibility in there.
I'm good.
Any other questions? All right. Recap of what we just went through. We have a $600,000 alignment, so 2.8% to get back in. And why is that? We just talked about all that kind of stuff. So material price increases right now, depending on what kind of material. Pat mentioned at the beginning, some steel increase, which affects multiple different work scopes due to COVID. So the percentages do vary on that. Inflation, so one of the line items on that estimate is inflation of the 300,000. That's the 1.5% inflation included due to bidding right now, or pricing right now, I should say, in 2021 and construction starting a year later. So we did reduce that from schematic design. We did have it at 3%, but due to the current economy that Pat had mentioned earlier, we decided to reduce that down to 1.5%.
What was the inflation number originally? And I guess what my question is we've accelerated the timeline here. I mean, what originally were we planning on inflation? Was it the 3% or was it reduced to 3% when we moved the timeline up, or?
It was originally 3% per year for 2 years, so it was 6%. And then when you chose to do this, the sequence demolition option, then it went down to 3%. And now we've cut it down to 1.5%.
So basically by reducing the number and accelerating the construction, we've basically
Saving money.
about $1 million, it looks like.
Don't think it was.
650 plus 327.
Yeah, it was close to that. You are correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, with both of those.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of crystal ballish, right? Is it 3%? Is it 4%? 3% is kind of a standard, but right now, I mean, we're how far into this year already? And the markets are pretty flat until the immunizations come back. And then the thought is we're going to have a little boom and we're going to have shortages of materials and prices are going to be high and then it's going to level off. So in that time, that's a ways down the road. And we told all of our pricing currently is to compensate for our prices being that January of next year timeframe. So we don't want to double and triple up. We don't want to compensate for the high prices now and then charge 3% interest in our estimate and then have some allowances along the way. And then we find out we cut too much out of the project because, you know, we cried wolf and we don't want to do that. So that's why we did the science on that and went to 1.5. And we're feeling pretty comfortable on that unless something drastically changes. And that's where the flexibility of the alternates is, so.
Thanks.
We almost feel, as bad as it is to not have you have enough money, it also is really bad if we tell you you don't have enough money and then you have plenty of money because the prices come in better. We don't want to be that person either, because then it's like, well, we cut all these things out and now, you know, we didn't have
Quite the
to.
balancing.
So we think we're right there where we need to be.
So last bullet there, just the design isn't fully developed yet. We're still at design development and moving on into construction documents. And that estimate, we'll be able to really rein in those details and really get a full set of drawing plans and specifications to give a more accurate price. So we talked about all these items already, managing the alternates for that word right there, flexibility. That's the key word for alternates. So developing the design further. And also another option is to reallocate some more soft cost budget, such as the high school did for coming in within budget there. So.
And that's a good point. We really did not cut back on soft costs. It was very loud and clear from Dr. Schmidt and the advisory team that we don't want to have old furniture in our new schools. And we heard that from you as well as a group. So we're sitting pretty good over there in the soft costs. So if we get close and we have to pull some funds from there into the hard costs, you're still not going to end up with used desks. One of the things that has happened is the district has looked at things that they bought in the last couple of years that will be the proper model and use in the new building. A lot of them like in offices, you know, where you have new chairs. If you went and bought new chairs already this year, do you really need to throw them all away and buy new chairs when the building's done? So those kinds of things are being looked at too.
So with that, if there's any questions or comments, if not, Madam Chair, we can do the vote for approval on DD.
Yeah, I just want, one more thing,
Yep.
sorry, Pete, is contingency. So we talked inflation at length, so you've got that, but also we have contingency in this. And usually you guys hit me on this right away, so I was waiting, but I'll bring it up. I gotta help you on this. Contingency, you've got to just push it out of your mind that that's extra money sitting out there. You gotta think about it that it's all spent. If we don't spend it, yes, you get it back. But there's enough variables going on in this market and enough variables in the construction of these complicated buildings that you just have to think that it's gone. Now, we account for it and we show you how it gets spent and we pass that through the advisory team and they approve those things. So that accountability is there. But if you're thinking that, well, God, we had $1 million extra contingency over on the high school over there, if we just, watch our P's and Q's to be able to buy some new things at the end of this project, you kind of got to not think that way. Contingency truly is what it's going to take to make these projects come off. And again, on the fine line, we try not to overdo the contingency so that you have a big windfall at the end. The whole idea is we get to the end and everything was spent properly and you got what you needed. So anybody have any contingency questions for me? Because I'll just tell you this, and we'll do this at the quarterly meeting, Madam Chair, and you'll have that in the report. But we are sitting okay on the elementary right now up the hill, Evelyn Gilbert, and on the high school, we're sitting okay on that contingency, but neither are fat right now. But when we get out of the ground, that's where most of the contingency usually gets spent. That's where the unforeseens are, under the ground.
And you did say, I think 3 months ago, in 12 months, we can start talking about spending the contingency. I do remember that.
We're just not there yet. Hang with us.
Oh, I knew we weren't there.
He was paying attention, see?
Well, you're sharp, Matt, I'll tell you.
And we have contingency in this project for that same reason.
Not many.
Especially but tying it to an existing building, you never know what you're going to run into there.
There's some interesting things.
Don't say that.
There's some interesting things with this site because 3rd Street, those utilities run through the middle of the high school underneath the ground. So when we tear that building down, we're going to make sure we don't disrupt any of those utilities and then protect them again when we're all done. So just those unique things.
Any other questions?
So you're saying that the utilities for the city or just the high school?
City utilities for 3rd Street run right through the center of the high school, the current high school building.
The city entertain moving those off school property?
No, I don't think so.
How are they gonna get to them if they're underneath the school?
Because they won't be under the new building. It's something that happened just real quick. School districts used to be very aligned with the local cities and with the counties and those types of things. And then at one point they became independent school districts. But before they split like that, there was a lot of, well, we're all a part of the same team, so we're gonna run your steam line at an angle right through the corner of the site, which they did on this building. So now we have to pay to bring that steam line out at a 90-degree to go around so that we can build our building, right? Same thing with these utilities. Well, let's vacate 3rd Street and just build a high school over the top. They wouldn't let you do that anymore, but they did back then. So those kinds of things happen. And that's the whole idea of doing a thorough research up front so that we have that budgeted for, and we do.
They just made it more fun for you and I.
Yeah.
Wait till the city comes in and says we want to make 3rd Street go across again.
If there aren't any other questions, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the Virginia Elementary School Design Development Estimate.
So moved.
Motion by Director Schoberg, support by Director Addy. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Agenda item number 6 are the reports, and first up is Willie Speltz.
Hello. It's kind of funny, speaking of that 3rd Street that you guys were just talking about. And I'm only joking, City of Virginia, but that steam has leaked there by that VHS Pride thing forever. So hopefully we don't have to pay for fixing any of that, because that's entered our building many times at the Roosevelt also and knocked out much of the basement over the years, so.
Keeps the sidewalks clear though, doesn't it?
Keeps the side, yes, until the steam stops working and it turns into an ice rink. So yes, most of the time it will. Thank you for this opportunity. It's good to see all of you. I first of all want to say, I don't know if it'll come up. If it does, but congratulations to the swimmers. The Rock Ridge swim team had an amazing, and you should all stand. It's wonderful. Had an amazing first ever appearance. I won't say too much in case others are talking about it, but they just finished at the boys state swimming tournament and absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I bring that up because it does match to me. My Facebook account, it has a VHS alumni swimming, and it's starting to match up over into Evelyn and Gilbert alumni swimming. So a lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people were very impressed. They saw a lot of kids finishing in the top 10, finishing in the top 8, medaling, everything down there. So huge congratulations to our Rock Ridge boys swim team after this past weekend.
I just have to add, they as a team did 7th in Section A, which is just
Awesome.
phenomenal. And I'm a proud mom, but also a proud board member with these these 3 schools coming together, and they were incredible.
Yeah, I agree. Good for you. Thanks for jumping in with that.
Thanks for letting me.
Yeah, for that more information. That's wonderful. So just an update. I wrote it down so I could keep everything moving along. A beautiful, kind commitment from the Waschke family has been made, and it is in the process of being finalized. Specifics to be shared when finalized. Bill, a Virginia company.
Very good.
I'm only teasing. And a great announcement to make from Seppi Brothers of Virginia. They have committed to the naming rights of the Rock Ridge varsity softball field. This will mirror the agreement that you may recognize from before on the varsity baseball field. It is an amazing $100,000 commitment. And we are so lucky to have this great local support from a Virginia company. Thank you, Seppi Brothers.
Yes.
Huge thanks, and more details and all that paperwork will come through, but thank you. And then I have one, it might be hard for me to get through this because it ends up touching a personal one, but a great story regarding an alum personal donation. Bob Intihar, class of 79 from Evelyn High School, and Patty Krogh Intihar, a Virginia High School graduate from 1979. Patty passed away recently, way too young. Her mom, Kathy Krogh, worked for probably 30 plus years in the Virginia school system as a secretary in many places, most noted and probably the longest in the community ed office. Patty's family wanted to make a donation in memory of Patty to the indoor playground planned in the new Evelyn Elementary, South Elementary, whatever we're calling it, elementary school. Patty's passion was early childhood, And she did this for her profession and career. She started while she was here in Virginia, still as a student. How ironic is this? Patty was a state qualifier in swimming at Virginia High School. And they are donating $5,000 in her memory towards a piece of indoor playground equipment that will fit and match the early childhood aged children. What a great way to forever remember Patty and her lifelong contribution and passion to early childhood. We'll recognize a piece of equipment with the little story of Patty and her picture to be forever there. So thank you very much, Bob Intihar, for giving this donation in memory of your wife, Patty, and thank you to the Krog family. They were a big part. I grew up in Midway with the Krog family, and Patty for sure babysat me. So it's very close and dear to my heart. So thank you to the Krog family for that. Just wonderful. And let's see, in memory of locker room type settings, or classrooms are live and running very well. So if you have any that you can think of, anything like that, make sure you get it to me. I'll reach out to the people. We see if we can get it. Others have been reaching out since they've seen the previous board meetings or heard about it, so that's good. When you get to item 7.1, if I'm not here, if it's after 7:50, I apologize. You certainly could call me and put me on speaker, but there's a major figure skating show practice going on, and I'm in charge of picking up tonight. So pardon my disappearance if that happens. Please do call me if you have any questions on it, and I'll answer them. I think that's a great story that you'll be taking care of then. So, any questions?
Just thanks once again for bringing all this good news to the board. And, you know, we said it before, but whether it's a donation of $5 or 5,000 or more, it all matters. And we're so thankful for all of it.
Well said. Thanks, Stacy. I agree.
Good job, Willie.
Hi, King.
Donated up to the state.
Yep.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
6.2 is the budget report with consideration for approval. And Spencer.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you, Mike. Knew you'd be right on that. So the majority of this information was shared 2 weeks ago at that board meeting. And then this past Friday, I did share this information with the finance committee. So if anybody on that finance committee, if I missed something, please jump in and help me out on that. So I'll just give a quick brief overview of the things that we talked about 2 weeks ago, and then I'll tell you what's new on this sheet. So the assumptions haven't changed. We're still looking at a decrease of about 108 students from this past school year's budget. We're bringing in about 150 kindergarten students. Right now, we are assuming a 0% from the state. And our estimate for contract settlements is $1 million, and that's for all AFSCME. That's for all employees of the district, the $1 million. And we're right in the middle of those negotiations. So it's, like I said last time, these are estimates. There's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts still with this entire budget. But this is the information that we know of today. So for the revenue, we're down about a total of $1 million in this estimate. That's the 0%, plus the basic skills that we talked about. That's directly based on free and reduced lunch numbers being less. Almost every state or every school in the state are seeing these numbers happen as well. So we're not alone in some of these decreases. So overall, between the expense increases and the revenue decreases, we were looking at about a $2 million working deficit to start this process. Some of the revenue changes we're looking at is this ESSER 2 estimated funds. This is the federal stimulus that was passed late December, early January. I did talk to the state last week to see when we would receive more information. They were hoping this week or early next week that they would start being able to release kind of the packet of information we will have to fill out to accept these dollars and start using these dollars. So we're hoping we see that this week. These are still estimates at this point at the 2.3 million. So then the next part is more specific to what was shared 2 weeks ago. I know we talked about looking at reductions of 700,000 for this year to make sure that we don't have to make double that in years to come. So this is what the administrative team had come up with for the expense changes that equal, these actually equal 703,000. So there's a 0.4 reduction in administration, a 4.0 FTE in elementary classroom. A couple of these teachers coming from retirements. When we talked about this, we were trying to go through things that kind of make reductions through attrition, where if people were leaving, maybe we don't replace those positions. So we tried to do that where we could. There's a reduction of 0.8 in the elementary gifted and talented program, 0.6 total reduction in the high school. And then there's a 2.0 reduction in maintenance staff. This is also due through retirements. I'm not replacing those retirements. And then 2.0 in paraprofessional and 1.0 FTE in special ed teacher. Again, these are based off of those 108 less students. So you would look at not needing as many teachers. The class sizes, we are mirroring what they are today in these reductions. Even with these reductions, we should be at about what they are today, which is an average of about 21 in the K through 6 classrooms. So that's really the big change from what we talked about 2 weeks ago. And then other things that are still on our proposed budget for now are increasing the cost to the early childhood classes. That's so it's free to all families in all communities here in Rockridge. And then we still have the potential teachers grievance that is ongoing. So there's potential cost increase there. So overall, this run at the budget would be adding funds to the fund balance. Again, that they may sound strange. Why are we cutting to add funds? And like we said, the ESSER dollars are one-time dollars, and we want to make sure that we can carry these and kind of get us through this time of the pandemic and the next couple of years until we can get into one building. So we want to make sure we have enough for the future if we don't get any more federal stimulus or more money from the state in basic aid. Other things that we know we have to think about going into the future is, the transition costs as we move into the new elementary buildings and the transition into the new high school. So there may be some costs involved there. We're thinking we should receive some decrease in utilities once we're out of the older buildings and into the new. So those are things on the horizon. Other optimistic news is federal stimulus package. There was another one passed about a week ago. We don't have any estimates on that, but if you look at the total amount that the ESSER 2 passed for K-12 education nationwide, and this latest one was even more nationwide. So we think we should at least receive the same amount that we're getting now. I'm thinking more. So that should be good news for us. I'm hearing more and more that the state is looking at 1% for our basic aid. So that would be more than what this budget is showing right now. And there's possible other revenues for summer school and kind of help getting kids caught up after having, kind of this year with a lot of distance and those type of things. So there is things to be optimistic about. I don't think we're making too deep of reductions. I think most of these are, again, based on our estimate of students. So if those students come back, we can make adjustments easier to add than it is to subtract at a later date. So looking for you guys, any input on this. If you could make a motion to accept those reductions at this time, we'll bring the full budget as the process goes on through May and June. But this is our best estimate at this point with the information that we have. Did I miss anything, those that were at the Finance Committee on Friday?
No, but if I might, just to point out, and to your point, Spencer, that, while it looks like there's a $640,000 surplus, if you will, here, that's because of the $2.3 million in federal ESSER monies. And I mean, really, if you net that out of there, we're still looking at a systemic shortfall, if you will, of $1.7 million based on these assumptions. And I think that all works out, but it's, like you say, it's not like we're cutting to have a surplus.
Exactly. We're making the reductions so that we can hopefully, these ESSER dollars are used, what they're for is to get us through these couple bumpy years with everything. And to do that, we've got to make sure we have enough to roll into the future.
Are there any other questions for Spencer?
I have one for Noel. Noel, I thought we didn't have a gifted and talented person this year, so where's that 80,000 reduction coming from?
We do. On the Virginia side of the equation, there was someone in a gifted and talented. On the Evans Gilbert side, there was not someone. So this is coming from the Virginia side of the equation. There was someone in that role.
She was actually,
And that was all budgeted before the two districts officially consolidated. So that's why that is there. It was there this year.
so was she actually teaching gifted and talented, or wasn't she reassigned to something else? She wasn't
She
doing.
was partly moved to something else, yes, that's true, but we're still spending money on talent and gifted, so we're suggesting we can shift it, and that makes sense to us as an admin group.
So if she was shifted from gifted and talented, and she wasn't like a gifted and talented classroom teacher, what was her job?
She shifted into more of a, when we were trying to move distance learning kids around, and we had a lot of kids wanting to come back into the classroom, we needed to put more teachers into the classroom to handle that. And so that's what we did.
So did that actually open up another position if she was shifted into district
No,
learning?
Because we did not fill a long-term sub job either, because we had enough teachers. If we shifted kids around, there was no need for us to fill a long-term sub job. So the money is still there, we spent it. We're saying we think we can shift things around, so next year we don't have to spend it there.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this as presented.
There's a motion by Director Reardon and support by Director Anderson. Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
And Tom wasn't.
The motion passes 6-1 with one not available. All right, agenda item 6.3 is the principal's report from Virginia High School Principal Lisa Perkovich.
I had a whole plan to follow up Willie because he was so positive. He was going to talk about it being a spring of hope, and then we had the budget in between. Thank you for ruining that. But we have a lot of things going on. I guess it's really hopeful back on our campus. I think Dan would say the same thing. It's nice to have kids back. As restrictions start to release, we've been able to do some fun snow week activities with the kids. We have a in-person graduation planning is commencing, prom planning is commencing. We were able to have some send-offs for the swim team, the wrestling team, things like that. That is what kids really look forward to. It's a part of high school that for a year they haven't been able to have. And it just changes exactly what that feels like in a building. And it's taking the weight off the teachers, it's taking the weight off of the students because we're bringing some happy back. So this week, we're taking off with that and bringing classes in and starting our registration for next year. And that's kind of exciting to think about too. A lot of the courses that kids love and have been able to take in the past just really couldn't be offered this year, especially in kind of some of those industrial tech areas and things like that. It's real hard to do in a distance learning type environment. So we'll be registering. One of the things that it would be important for the board and the community to know is you're already going to see some massive changes in the course offerings between the two high schools, because Angie and I have worked together to make sure that some of the beloved classes on the Evelyn Gilbert campus are showing up in our Virginia course catalog. Some of the courses that are great on our campus are showing up in the Evelyn Gilbert course catalog, with the understanding that kids can register for that. And they'll be handled in a plethora of different ways, but it might be as simple as maybe it's a course that can continue to be taught in a distance learning model and it would make sense and we would do it that way. Sometimes it's a more hands-on course, like an industrial tech course or a food science course or things like that. We might need to bus kids back and forth between campuses. And our teachers are okay with that, our students are okay with that. And of course, the third option then would be that maybe the kids don't move, but the teachers do. Maybe we can offer a full section on each campus and there's a little bit more traveling. So that's exciting. We have some pretty thick course catalogs, so we're excited to see where that registration goes. But that's kind of the big things that's happening. The other big thing that's coming on board is, and I think Spencer alluded to it, was some summer school stuff. In the past, especially on the Virginia campus, we have sent all of our summer school students to the NLC for summer school. We just have not had the need to offer it on our campus. With distance learning and the success rate in distance learning throughout the world, we do have a need to look at some summer school offerings. So the NLC will still do quite a bit of our programming, but we will be offering a very specific type of reading recovery and math recovery. So the NLC uses a very computerized program where the kids log on, they take a pretest and they do it all via computer. We feel that some of our kids just need a little bit more than that. They need some actual teacher and student interaction. And so some of those students will be targeted for math and reading. It is our understanding that the state has dollars that will be funding this. And so we're waiting to get some more information from them to make sure that that is a net neutral to the district if we can. Anything else I can answer for you today?
Lisa, when you said there's going to be some massive course offering changes, does that include new courses that we don't have already?
In some instances, Polly, the answer would be yes. In most, not really. In business, yes. We were able to meet with the business sector this year. We brought in representatives from multiple different facets of the business industry and worked through a scope and sequence for a business academy. So you'll see those in there. You'll also see some stuff from the health sciences. So again, we met with the health sciences sector and talked about courses that would fit naturally into that academy. Those will be in the catalog. And I guess the only other major new one that I'm aware of is we're offering a class called Coaching and Officiating, simply to fill a need. We can't find coaches nor officiants for our athletics. And so that will be a PE offering that kids can take to learn the rules to do that as well. Other than that, it's mostly just taking kind of the best of both worlds and starting to mesh. That's about as far as we've gotten so far.
At your admin meetings about this, if these are new courses, will those be new positions and is that in this budget?
They are not new positions. They would replace other courses. So they would replace outdated courses and be more relevant now.
Okay. And my other question, I asked it at the last meeting, I think, or the last couple, about you weren't registering that then, and I asked about block scheduling. Are you registering in a block scheduling format or what?
That's a great question. I'll tell you what we are doing for registration. We have no idea how to build a schedule. So I can do pre-registration. That's as far as I can get until there's a decision. We are having kids register for 8 courses. Typically they'd register for 7 in a traditional schedule. We're having them register for 8, which means they can choose 1 additional elective. Why are we doing that? Because it's easier to not give them 1 course than it is to go the other way and try to guess which one would fit there. So we won't be able to schedule yet until negotiations. I believe that's a negotiated item until that process is done, but we'll have the data ready.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
It's exciting to hear that there's some in-person stuff discussions for graduation and for prom and things like that. Kids really need that socialization and back to normalcy. So
I would have to add for the send-off for the swimmers and the wrestlers, to hear the pep band and see the palms and just, to be back in it just a little bit was pretty cool. So I echo what Director Lotiger says, that nice of the idea of prom and in-person graduation.
It's awesome. It's long awaited and I think everybody's ready.
yeah, it brings the wind back into our sails, I think.
Yep, it does. It does. It's a good way to end the year.
When is the prom date?
May 8th, 9th, it's whatever that Mother's Day Saturday is, I believe.
And these discussions are happening on both campuses.
They are happening on both campuses, yes.
Now, are we going to have prom on both campuses at the same date?
I cannot answer that.
Okay.
You could join the planning committee and help with that.
Been there, done that. I'm sorry. No, I just,
Yeah, on the Virginia side, what we looked at was who's having playoff games and tournaments at that time. And we picked the day that had the least amount of athletics happening. So that's how ours was chosen, but
okay.
I think that's typically how they.
yeah.
All right, if no other questions, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6.4 is the Small Business Development Center presentation with Betsy Olivanti.
Yep, hello.
Hi, welcome.
And members of the school board, I'm just going to frame this for you and then leave and let Betsy do her work. The purpose of why Betsy is here is to let you know, and members in the audience, to keep you informed about what is happening in Gilbert in regards to the city of Gilbert and the possibility of the city taking a look at purchasing, obtaining all part of the Gilbert campus. So what has happened is this is not the school running this, but this is important for everyone to know that this is happening. The city of Gilbert is taking a look. They specifically have Betsy here, and she's going to talk about the timeline. But we really do want all of the residents of Gilbert involved in this. We want them to think this through and take a look at, does this make sense for the city of Gilbert and the residents in the community of Gilbert to obtain part of the buildings? If so, what would they do with them? What would happen with them? And so we encourage all of the community members of Gilbert to come to the meetings. There will be some other things that will happen. I won't steal Betsy's thunder, but I asked her to come up here and she was good and gracious enough too, so that you and the audience would know what's going on in Gilbert. So take it away, Betsy.
Thanks, Dr. Schmidt. Thank you very much for entertaining my presentation tonight, school board directors and Madam Chair. It's nice to just come and present a little bit about what's happening. So my name is Betsy Olivanti and I'm the Northland Small Business Development Center consultant for the Quad Cities. And so my day job is I help small businesses start, grow, and succeed. So yes, I've talked with your Business Academy teacher and we're chatting through how I can best help in that arena. But so I came to this project through, the school district offered this up to the city of Gilbert and said, the school district does schools, you as a city figure out economic development. Would you like to consider this project? So the school district called up the IRRR and the IRRR called the Northland Foundation because we have done some of this work in the past. I've worked with the East Range Joint Powers Board and a few other different community groups talking about economic development. So we said, sure, we're happy to help. So the project mission here is to determine what the community of Gilbert is willing to invest in for their school campus. Because anything that they take on as a budgetary item for their city will impact their taxes. So we want to consider it that way. And so the options identified thus far through conversations with the city is one, to demolish all the structures and purchase the land for the fee that the state agrees is a commensurate fee for that particular property. Two is to demolish some of the structures, purchase the remainder of the land and the structures that are left. And three is to keep them all intact and purchase completely. And so those are the three options that we're considering as we go through this process. Now, obviously, we have a few conditions as we get started. You guys have been hearing about this as you build other buildings. So, there were a few things that we laid the land with to make sure that the community is well aware. And any demolition paid for by the school district is going to be identified during this process. We can't come back 5 years later and ask, hey, by the way, we'd like to demolish a couple things now. There are no option to go back for those funds. There's no other entities out there willing to demolish things later. we try this, those sorts of things. So we're laying this groundwork so that we have a good project now. And the school district has given us a time frame between now and December of 2021. We've talked a little bit with Director Addy and Dr. Schmidt at the initial meeting about if we get to December and we've got a couple of months that we're still finishing off some things, what's our leeway? And so our point is to keep you informed and have that conversation early and often so that the school district can give us good information back based on where we're at in the process. But our goal is December of 2021. Yes?
No, nothing.
Okay.
I was giving Mr. Addy a hard time back here.
Oh, no, it was wonderful that he came to our meeting. Dr. Schmidt and Director Addy were both there. It was fabulous that they were there because they could answer some questions that the city and the building principal and myself could not. So that was fabulous. So project team obviously can't do this on my own. Gilbert residents, the entire, city is involved in this. We have the city engineer, a couple of city councilors, the city administrator, the deputy clerk, myself. I am facilitating the conversation for the community of Gilbert. And then we have brought in the Norspan Group and Carl Shuttler specifically to do some research around these options and to conduct the surveys so that they're done well and done right. So that is something that without really conducting the surveys of the community and getting their input on these things, especially for folks who can't attend meetings, the meetings aren't at the right time for them, those sorts of things, we can get some really good input by conducting some surveys. You all know that, you've done them yourselves. So timeline, the city decided to undertake this project as of February 2021, and we are hoping to be done by December of 2021. To come back to the city council with, or to the school board, the city council will send a resolution back as to what the Gilbert community would like to do. So they held their initial community meeting on February of 2021 and said, yes, we're going to undertake this project. We had our initial community meeting after that on March 16th to talk through this timeline, lay the project landscape, level set a little bit. April 2021, we're going to include some initial financials in a presentation to the community residents that come to those meetings. So we're going to talk through, what if we look at option 2 and demolishing some structures and keeping some, where are we at with that? What do these structures look like right now? Is there maintenance needs? Is there maintenance needs in the next couple of years? What does it look like? So that they can really start initially looking at option 2 and saying, we'd like to keep the media center. The playground, we could keep that, those sorts of things. So we're looking at that. We will conduct a community survey at this point initially then, after that April meeting. It will be online and mailed out to folks in their utility bills. So definitely going to blanket the community and make sure that we get out there to all folks. There will be notices posted in the library and in City Hall and at the post office and those kinds of places that are really, frequented by the community residents. And the city is really playing a part in helping to get that word out. And this meeting, obviously presenting to all of you, is another way we're getting the word out to the Gilbert residents. So we really do appreciate being able to chat with you all. May 2021, we're going to have option 2 results come back from the community survey, present those to the group, and start talking about research on financial feasibility of what it really looks like with partial structures and those sorts of things. We're going to do a deep dive in on some research there and present that back to the community by the end of the summer, hopefully. And then we'll do a second survey at that point to determine the willingness, once we know what it would cost to keep partial structures and to, what it would cost the city to operate them at that point, or to keep partial structures and offer up for development or, all sorts of different things like that. What it costs to renovate a building of that size and offer for an RFP for development, all of those sorts of things. Once we know those answers, we're going to ask the community if they're willing to invest in those solutions so that they can say, okay, now that we've seen what the actual costs are, what are we willing to invest in? And again, Norspan will be super helpful at that juncture and make sure that, you know, we can communicate back to the residents what it actually costs instead of just ballpark, you know, pie in the sky sort of idea. November 21 or October 21, we bring that stuff back to the community. In November, the city council is going to adopt a resolution saying, this is what we're willing to do. So that way it's absolutely clear as to what the forward direction is. All of this stuff will be public record, part of the meeting notice, all that sort of stuff, because we have 2 city councilors who are attending these meetings and will bring that information back to the city council. So there will be plenty of opportunities for folks to see the information, hear what's happening with it, and react to it. So we're doing a nice long process to make sure that we have plenty of time to get this right. So here's the campus so far. We just grabbed it off of, you know, the County Land Explorer, but we're talking about these locations and structures. So there's the elementary, the junior and the senior high, the media center, football field, tennis courts. There's some question right now. The tennis courts were built with both local, state, and federal funding. So they're checking into whether a couple of the tennis courts that were built with federal funding must remain and be renovated or not. And so that will be definitively put into the public record so that folks, you know, it's not a, well, I heard this thing about the tennis courts and I think we have to keep them or all that sort of stuff. We're going to make sure that we know if we have to keep them or not. So, and then the playground, there's another playground close by, but really looking at this from an asset-based, what do we have in place and what can be utilized by the community going forward? And obviously the bus garage is listed there. School district is keeping that, so it's not up for option. So that is one of the things that we're going to keep on the list to make sure that folks know we do see it, it is there, but it is being utilized. So the items to consider as we got started, the boilers, the HVAC system and where it's controlled, the media center, you know, how contiguous is it to the rest of the building? Could it be sectioned off? Football field, what to do with that great expanse of space, tennis courts built with federal funds, playground, another one close by, and then the bus garage that the school is keeping. Upcoming, we will have regular meetings on the 3rd Tuesday of the month in the evening, typically starting at 6 o'clock in the media center at the Gilbert School. It was really nice on March 16th to get a tour so that as we started this project, the folks that were there could see the building. The building principal has said that he will give tours to anybody who calls and wants to come and see it, okay? So if you weren't able to attend that particular meeting and you would like to get a good level set of what the building looks like at this point, he will take you through what he can so that you can get an understanding of how that school looks and what we're talking about with the campus. Watch for the community surveys to come out in the utility bills. It'll be online at the city website. We'll make sure to control it so that you can only vote in the survey once. And then updates at the city website as the project moves forward. Like I said, we will be posting the minutes, the information, the notices, the progress constantly so folks can see where it's at and what's happening with it. So that it will all be a transparent process and out there in the public so that folks are aware of what's happening. So that's it. I told Dr. Schmidt that I would sort of blaze through it just to give you guys an update and make sure that you're aware that the city of Gilbert is taking this project seriously and is really going to do some deep, thoughtful thinking on this. So wanted to just give you a heads up on that and make sure you are aware. Any questions before
Are there any social media posts or anything that can be shared?
Yes, so
get the word out to people when meetings and stuff are happening?
Yep, so the city does not have its own social media site, but they have connected with the Gilbert Public Library and the Gilbert Police Department to share things out. So those will be places that information will be available and then also on the city's website as well as we go forward.
And then the question, the purchase price is the nominal.
Yep.
Just so
Yep.
people are aware, it wasn't like a $6 million, $1.
Yeah, we're not sure what nominal means at this point, because I think that's a state question, right, Dr. Schmidt? It wasn't, there's no cost out there yet.
It's up to us, not the state.
School board.
Okay, all right. So obviously, if they decide to purchase and they have a great project, it'll probably be a hard sell to you folks to make sure that we can, keep moving forward with the project in a reasonable fashion, but.
I would make a motion to give them a deed to the whole works right now.
We're not there yet, Director Schoberg. We did have that question. We had a great group of folks. There were probably about 24 at the meeting. So it was great conversation. We were there for about an hour and a half. Your building principal did a fantastic job talking about, the building and all that sort of stuff. And it was really nice, like I said, to have Director Addy and Dr. Schmidt there to answer questions as we went along. So it was a great start to the project, and I'm looking forward to working with the community on it. And we are not ready to purchase quite yet.
Nice enthusiasm.
Excellent. Yes.
So Betsy, is it kind of the main idea of the city is to use this for a community resource and not really maybe partner with some organization or business to turn it into any kind of a housing or rental, or is that the process they're going to go through to find out?
Yes.
Basically, though, their initial idea is as a community resource and a community hub, right?
No, we are exploring all options for economic development and community development. And the city just doesn't have a community development person. So, as a city administrator, Jim Paulson is one person. So he brought in some additional capacity through myself and Carl Schittler to help make those decisions. But the community will make those decisions. And they're looking at it from an economic development, community development, and or just, taking everything down and waiting for the right opportunity to present itself. So there's options. They're not sure which they're going to pick. It was interesting. The conversation at that first meeting was, how about we just offer it up for sale right now? Well, then the conversation was, how do we control then who wants to buy it? How do we even know if we're willing to have them purchase it? What if we don't have an option to put, the halt on that purchase agreement? So the decision is to go about it slowly to make sure that we connect with the right developer. If that's the decision is economic development, to connect with the right developer to make the right project happen.
And I asked that because that leads into my second question, because on one of our last meetings, we've had this discussion already about our Evelyn buildings, the buildings in Evelyn. And I'm wondering about the timetable, the summer, the fall, get all of your input, your surveys in. But right now, we've talked about our timing in finding out about viable projects, offers, purchase offers, sales agreements, viability. And so that's a big part of theirs too. And I guess I didn't see that in the timetable, but.
Yep. That's the research.
Seems like that timing is real by December. That's a lot to do because we've been talking about it for a few months already.
Yeah, that's the beauty of bringing, say, a Norspan who does this work. They've worked with the city of Sandstone and other places to do an RFP for this exact type of thing. It's a school building and we're going to do economic development and a redevelopment project with it. That's the beauty of working with people who've done this before, is they know who those developers are, how to do the RFP correctly to attract the right project, that sort of thing. So yeah, it looks like it's, we've got until December, no problem, but you're right. It's going to be compressed and lots of good research going on, especially in that June, July timeframe is when a lot of that financial feasibility information will come out. Yep.
And I think one of the points that Mayor Oberstar had mentioned, that they got some big project possibly that's going to happen to their community center downtown, which is a 600,000 plus renovation they have to do to that building to make it ADA compliant, elevators, bathrooms, new heating system, a new kitchen. And it was, well, what do we do? Do we put $600,000 into this building or move everything up to the media center where everything is pretty much ADA compliant and put the $600,000 into this building? And that's what was mentioned. So that's the decision that the city is going to have to make.
Yeah.
And quickly, I think the difference is here, the city of Gilbert has indicated that they're willing to try and be directly involved with repurposing the facilities, where in Evelyn, that was not the case.
Sure, Director Raymond.
I don't know how they found you, but I want to applaud you and your organization for helping Gilbert put all this together, because this is a big commitment for such a small city. And you and everybody you can bring to the table are bringing the expertise that should help them make a good decision. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so they found us through Chris Ismail at the IRRR, and I'm sure Matt and those folks as well. So, you know, that's why we do the work we do in the community is to help with economic development projects, and we enjoy it. So, you know, these kinds of things are things that make me, you know, excited about our community and the directions we're going in. So, absolutely.
Hopefully on the back of Matt's comment, I hope that some citizens from the city of Evelyn, city leaders are watching this, the city of, the mayor of Evelyn is looking, and maybe they can utilize your services to repurpose things, their buildings if they choose to.
I have to say, I'm pretty blown away by your timeline and how organized everything is. And I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like it would be possibly a win-win for both the school and being able to sell it and not have to spend on the demolition, but then also for the city of Gilbert to have something in the community that is going to be, like you were saying, community and economic development for the city. It's exciting.
Thank you. Excellent. Any other questions? No? Wonderful. Thank you. Yep, and we'll be back to give you an update, I assume. So,
So the next
thank you.
meeting- What was the next meeting that was in, what was the exact date?
The third Tuesday of April.
Okay, at 6
Tuesday,
o'clock.
wasn't that Thursday?
Tuesday.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Yep, Media Center.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, 6.5 is superintendent.
Thank you, members of the school board. A couple things to update you on. One is the school name survey is over, so I don't know what the results are. But that will be coming back to you, I'm certain, at the next board meeting as far as the next step in the process, because we're doing the survey, but you as the board will be the ultimate decision makers as far as what the names of the two elementary schools are. So that is over with, the public surveying part of it, where we're at right now. So we'll have an update for you at the next board meeting. Then we have another survey coming because it's on the attendance boundary lines. That conversation will be a little bit different. This one has been slower because I've been working with the consultants, because this one is a little more complicated, because we want to make sure it's simple for the parents and the people who are doing the survey. So we have maps included, so people will be able to look and understand it. So that survey will be going out in a couple of days, and you will be able to look at the data and break it down by parents, teachers, community members, and take a look at how different people are viewing any potential attendance boundaries. And the attendance boundaries would be the new Evelyn Gilbert Elementary School and the new Virginia Elementary School plus Parkview. Parkview and the new Virginia Elementary School, they're kind of a package deal because those attendance boundaries will be the same for those two buildings. So that is coming up, just a heads up, and we'll run that one for a couple weeks so people have adequate time to think about it and banter about it at the supper table. And we encourage everyone who's watching to take the survey, and it should be fun. The other thing, you heard someone, Lisa, talk about summer school. We are looking at the summer school. We have some additional details for you at the next board meeting, how it might work. But I think the administrative group can pull it off. They've been working hard behind the scenes. And keep in mind, this is something where they're pretty much giving themselves more work. They're not getting more money for this. They're getting more work to do this. So we think we can do this. We think we can do this well. We'll have a plan for it. But the basic kids we're looking at for the summer school will be when school gets out to before, ending right before the 4th of July, will be kids who are behind in math and kids who are behind in reading. Those are the two primary ones. There could be some high school ones that are a little different than that, but for the most part, it's kids who are behind in math and reading. That's all I need to update you at this moment in time. Any questions from the board about any of the things that I mentioned?
Math and reading, summer school include, have over at that Gilbert campus? For those students, when they've been designated as whatever it was?
Yes, so the principals were looking at creating some criteria. So the criteria will include test scores. It will include, so the kids in Gilbert, they'll get caught by the test scores. We'll also have the teachers will go through the list to see that it makes sense with them. But we'll have some criteria that we can use so that it makes sense. But yes, it will specifically help kids in Gilbert.
And that citation from a couple of years ago? That's what
Yes.
I'm talking about.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
And it will be invitation, the summer school will be invitation only.
On your superintendent's report, actually, I was going to ask you to address those two, those surveys, the naming rights and the boundary lines. But in your superintendent's report to the board, could you tell us a little bit more about your House File 1516? How that came about, how that would help, and then about, you've been talking to the DOT about highway and safety and lights and the traffic. Could you
Sure.
touch on those?
By the House file, do you mean that proposed?
The extra money?
Okay, yes, I can certainly do that. Now, keep in mind that what I'm about to say is not for certain, because it has to go through the legislative process, and who knows what will happen after they're done. But through our area legislators, Dave Lislegard has been very good on this. Julie's been very good on that. Thomasoni's been very good on this. So what's happened is there are a handful of schools from around the state, not very many of them, who are asking that we receive exemption from taxes on construction materials. So since we have a large construction project going on, and so I testified, it's one of those deals where you only get so many minutes, so you have to, I probably spent 12 hours practicing my 4 minutes and with the handouts, because you got to be precise, you know, and you want to know what you're doing, and words matter when you get to this stage. And so we're asking for this. If we did receive this, what would it mean? It would, in my conversations with Pat Galler from Kraus Anderson, it would about $2.7 million. So it's a pretty good chunk of change, but they're talking about that House file. Whether it survives the political process, I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see in May when the final votes are in, or early June.
My question is, I thought public entities were tax exempt, so what's the tax on the construction materials?
We're not, but for example, we may have someone who is doing electrical work, and we've hired the company. Well, they're buying all sorts of materials that they're paying taxes on. And so how this would work is that they're still going to do that, but after the whole project is done, we would then submit to the state. In essence, it's a tax rebate. Is that how, that's how it works? So everything would get paid up front, and then we would apply for a rebate. And we are specifically, if you're wondering, why did we ask for this instead of, and frankly, in short, because I feel like we need a level playing field with other schools from around the state. We have a difficult construction site. No matter where we built this, it would have been a difficult construction site because our construction costs are higher than in other parts of the state when you're looking at just flat farmland. So the reality is we're paying a little bit more to get the same thing what other schools from different parts of the state are paying, and it has to do with geography. The other part of it is that the reality is we are in a poor part of the state. We don't have the tax base that you see in some other wealthier districts around the state. And the other part of it is that, as you know, we have had a population loss since 1970. We're actually living in the worst growing population area in the state of Minnesota. So when you add all this together, we're in a declining population base. And then we're just the poorer part of the state compared to the more affluent areas. And then we have higher construction costs than others. We're just asking for the state to help us level the playing field. So that was our basic rationale. Whether it works, we'll find out.
Is this type of rebate or tax exemption?
Can I just ask, actually, since this wasn't part of the director's report or the superintendent report, Polly, if you've got questions for Noel, if we could do it, you could do it after the meeting?
But I think this is good public information too, so.
It is, but it's not anything that's relevant to our meeting tonight, and it's not even a bill that's passed yet, so I'm just going to ask if if Noel can move on.
Well, I'm just not to extend it, but the other two that he talked about weren't on the agenda either.
Well, then why don't you talk to him about that after the meeting, and if there's a need for it to be put on the agenda, we can do that.
Would you care to talk about the highway safety DOT?
I would ask that be put on for another agenda item.
Okay, I need to defer to the chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 7 is under administration is consider approval of naming rights agreement between Rockridge Public Schools and the Kersey family. That was in our board packet, the naming rights agreement. So at this point, I would just ask, or I don't know, Willie, do you want to say anything more about it?
I was just gonna come up here and answer any questions if anybody had, so I can stay out of the way. Before I do that, a quick thank you to Tim Reardon for an assist on the SEPI donation. I try to go so fast when I get up here, and I even wrote it on here, so a quick thank you to Mr. Reardon for the assist on the SEPI donation.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Is there motion?
I'll move on that motion.
Motion by Director Addy, is there support? Support by Director Lotiger. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously, and we just very much thank the Kersey family. Agenda item 8 is unfinished business. No unfinished business. All right, meeting announcements, negotiations, admin committee will meet on March 25th at 3:15. And the next regular meeting of the the Rockridge Public School Board is April 12th at 6 p.m. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. By saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we are adjourned.